Hey, welcome this morning to The Heart. I'm so grateful you guys are here this morning. My name is Dominic. I'm the leader here at The Heart. Hey, quickly, touch somebody next to you and say, I'm glad you made it here today. Hopefully you meant it. I'm so glad you guys are here this morning. Before we get going into the message or do anything else, I want to say real quick, I know that some of you might be here for the first time. Some of you might be at church in general for the first time, maybe the first time in a long time. And I know that can be a little bit scary, a little bit weird. I was talking to a friend of mine this week, and they were saying that they have this history with church. It's not good memories. It's not they didn't have a good time. They don't really have a problem with God. They don't have a problem with Jesus, but it's church people that they have this bad memory of. And so I don't know, it made me think this week that I want to let you know that if that's where you are, if you have this history of being judged, this history of people pretending to care about you, or they only want to talk to you on Sunday, they don't want to talk to you throughout the week, that it's okay to be where you are on this journey of faith that we're on. Sometimes we're at really high highs, sometimes we're at really low lows. But the power of community, the power of this community, is that we're willing to be in those messes, to be in our mess, to be honest with ourselves where we are, and to be okay with where we are. I think we're constantly getting pushed or pulled into where we should be, or we should be as spiritual as somebody else, or we should read the Bible as much as this person, or we should go to church more. And there's all these shoulds and should this and should do that, all we have in our life. And sometimes you just need to be present with yourself right where you are. And I want to invite you to do that for the next a few minutes that we have here together this morning. Now, we've been in a message series going on here at The Heart called Bring Someone. It's bigger than that, though. It's bigger than a message series. It's bigger than a campaign. It's something that we are letting transform who we are, transform the way we talk to people, the way we look at the people around us, the opportunities that God has given us. And the heart behind it of Bring Someone is it's more than bringing people along with you when you get a cup of coffee. It's more than inviting someone to the movies with you. Bringing Someone is about inviting people into your life, inviting people into your mess, inviting people to be a part of who you really are. Because we can surround ourselves with people and be the loneliest person in the room. We can have a bunch of people around us. We can have a bunch of people in our contacts, a bunch of friends on Facebook, a bunch of followers on Instagram. But I'm sure you know that you can still be lonely. So Bringing Someone is not about adding people to your friend group. It is about the people that you have in your life, bringing them into your life, sharing who you really are with them, and allowing each other to grow from that. And so for the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about that, how bringing someone with you can grow your faith. It can change your perspective on your life. How bringing someone with you can change the person that you're bringing along. It can grow their faith. And so I want to dig into a little bit today on the bonds that can be formed, the friendships, the relationships, the connections that can be formed with the people that we are willing to bring along with us. If we can be brave enough and bold enough to invite people into our life, into our mess, the relationships that can be formed and grow from there. But you have to be willing to bring people in. You have to be willing to say yes. You have to be willing to invite people into your weirdness, because you're weird. Trust me. I've seen you. But it's okay, because I'm weird too. I want to tell you this story, and it's embarrassing. It's an embarrassing story for me to tell. But the way we do things is I'm just, this is like a therapy session, really, and you guys are just, all listening. Just nod your heads. It's fine. Makes me feel better. I want to tell you a story about when Amber and I were very first married, long time ago. We were just tiny little kids. Oh, we were so cute. Ooh, we were so cute. She was 21. I was 25. And we pretty much knew everything there was to know about marriage, running marriage seminars and classes, and we knew it all. And there was this, we were still newlyweds, hadn't been married that long. And I think we had known each other for maybe a year, before we got married. Right? Ish. She's on the phone. We were married, we maybe knew each other about a year, so we didn't know everything there is to know about each other yet. But there's this one thing that happened, and it always stuck out in my mind. I'm going to tell you, this is weird. So we were living in New Braunfels at the time. We just got an apartment. We were living in New Braunfels. And what you do in New Braunfels sometimes is you go to the high school football games. Anybody ever been to a high school football game in New Braunfels? Okay, that's what you do. So we went to the high school football game. And I can't remember exactly the situation around it, but I'm going to tell you what happened. So we're at the game, and where we're at in the bleachers, a couple rows in front of us, there is this girl that I recognized. But it wasn't that I knew her. You know how sometimes like you go, you see someone, you recognize them because you saw them like at the coffee shop before, or they worked at HEB or whatever it is. You know what I'm talking about? And you're like, where do I know that person? And you figure out that's what it was. Well, I recognized her, and I was like, where do I know her from? I was like, I think this wasn't it, but for the story it is. I think it was HEB. And so I asked Amber earlier. She does not remember this story at all. So I leaned forward, and I was like, hey, excuse me. She's like, I was like, do you work at HEB? She was like, yeah. I was like, were you there yesterday? She's like, yeah. I'm like, holding her boyfriend a little bit tighter, like, who is this guy? And then if that wasn't weird enough, I'm like, here we go, I was like, hey, did you have a blue ribbon in your hair? I swear this happened. You had a blue ribbon in your hair? She's like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, I think I saw you there yesterday. And that was the end of that interaction. They left not soon after that. And I remember, that's embarrassing. That is I'm embarrassed for past Dom, for the awkwardness that he was just okay to step into, When I think about that story, it as much as it is embarrassing, and it is, and as much awkwardness that was there, and there was, that's not the most memorable part of that story for me. In fact, that story only sticks out in my mind. The reason that story is a memory that I have, because I've done more embarrassing things than that, but that memory is strong, and here's why. It's because that whole time, everything in me was like, this is weird. And I'm sure you think that is weird, so nice assessment. But my new wife, who was sitting right next to me, didn't make me feel weird about any of it. She didn't make me feel like a weirdo. She wasn't like, what was that? And who was that? And what's your problem? There was none of that. I felt extremely comfortable. And I've grown a lot since then. I'm not as weird as I used to be, or at least I don't show you. You know what I mean? I keep that to myself. If I recognize you, I don't say it as much anymore. But there was something there that I hadn't experienced before with Amber yet. And I experienced it then, and I've experienced so much since then, is she wasn't afraid of who I really was. She wasn't afraid of my weirdness. She wasn't afraid if I say something stupid or something crazy. She wasn't afraid of my mess. And that's why that memory sticks out in my mind, because we have so many memories since then. We've done so many things. But why does that one stick out? That weird moment at a football game where I thought I recognized somebody else, and I had never seen that girl before or since. But there was something, a bond that was formed there. A depth to our relationship happened there not because of the event, but because she didn't make me feel weird about it. Because she was willing to be in that mess with me. And I don't know, maybe you have someone in your life, maybe you don't show your weirdness, maybe you don't show your mess. But I wonder if you have someone in your life who is there for you, who lets you be yourself. And maybe you have a story. I don't know. Anybody ever been on like some kind of a road trip or a camping trip or maybe a family trip where it was just a mess? It was just a terrible time. Everybody was fighting with each other. You ran out of gas, flat tire. Everybody was arguing. You wanted to go to Whataburger and your parents went to, Burger King instead, Don't get me started on those parents. I would never do such a thing. But there's something about those memories, right? When you go and you see those, you're a part of those memories, and in those memories, why is it that why don't they seem so horrible? Why don't they seem as horrible as they were back then? Because there's something that happens. There's a bond that is formed in those times with those things. There's a bond between the people that were in that. In fact, my dad, a long time ago, he was in the military. And I was not in the military. I didn't experience this. My dad was in the military, and he went through basic training. He told us before that there's nothing fun about basic training. You don't enjoy it, but there's a bond that is formed with the people that you go through that with. There's a bond that is formed with the people that you're in that with, and that's the bond that I'm talking about. The bond, the relationship, a connection that is formed, that is bigger than the event. A connection that is formed that is deeper than something that happens in that moment. So what I'd like to do is I want to look at a story this morning. We're going to look in the book of Luke. So if you have your Bibles, you can turn to it. Book of Luke chapter 10. We're going to look at a story, and some of you might recognize it as the story of the Good Samaritan. Now, Luke is one of the four Gospels. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are the four Gospels in the Bible. If you don't read the Bible, it's okay. We're going to look at it together. We're going to look at the Passion Translation, and I want to encourage you to look at different translations, look at different versions, look at the different versions that are out there. Because here's what's going on is we're looking at an ancient culture speaking an ancient language, and we have people smarter than myself, men and women, who are translating this into a language that you and I can understand. And it's you and I being able to understand this language that allows us to get a glimpse into what the authors are trying to show us, trying to tell us. So if you have a different version than this Passion Translation we're going to look at, that's okay. Don't be afraid to look at different translations, different versions. It helps you get a good sense of what is going on and what the authors are trying to tell us. So we're going to look at Luke chapter 10, and I'm going to read, just so we have a good a glimpse of the story, I'm going to read the whole story, verses 25 through 37, and then we're going to go back and look for it, or look at it. We'll look for it too. You can look for it now if you want to. Just then a religious scholar, so Jesus is kind of doing his thing. He's teaching people. He's always teaching people. He's always training his disciples, giving them glimpses into what heaven was meant to be like, what heaven was meant to be about. When I say what heaven is like, I don't mean, is it in the clouds or is it in the streets of gold? I mean what heaven is like as in the language of love, compassion, seeing people for who they are. Okay, here we go. Just then a religious scholar stood before Jesus in order to test his doctrines. He posed this question. That happened all the time. People were always trying to test Jesus. They were always trying to catch Jesus in something. Trying to catch Jesus messing up, saying something wrong, mixing up his words. I don't know, maybe you have people like that in your life who are trying to catch you in something, trying to catch you in a lie or catch you in messing up something. Let's see how Jesus handles it. So he posed this question, "Teacher, what requirement must I fulfill to live forever in heaven?" Jesus replied, what does Moses teach us? What do you read in the law? As classic Jesus, he answers a question with a question. The religious scholar answered, "It states that you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, passion, energy, and every thought, and you must love your neighbor as well as you love yourself." And Jesus said, "That is correct. Now go and do exactly that, and you will live." Wanting to justify himself, he questioned Jesus further, saying, "What do you mean by my neighbor? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by it?" You know people who are like, "Well, technically," or are you that person where you're like, "Well, true, but technically," I think he's one of these guys. "Yeah, true, but technically, who is my neighbor? Am I right, Jesus? Am I right, guys?" Jesus replied, "Listen, and I'll tell you this story. There was once a Jewish man traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho when bandits robbed him along the way. They beat him severely, stripped him naked, and left him half dead. Soon, a Jewish priest walking down the same road came upon the wounded man. Seeing him from a distance, the priest crossed to the other side of the road and walked right past him, not turning to help him one bit. Later, a religious man, a Levite, Levites were assistants in the temple that would help the priests. He came walking down the same road and likewise crossed to the other side to pass by the wounded man without stopping to help him. Finally, another man, a Samaritan, came upon the bleeding man and was moved with tender compassion for him. He stooped down and gave him first aid, pouring olive oil on his wounds, disinfecting them with wine, and bandaging them to stop the bleeding. Lifting him up, he placed him on his own donkey and brought him to an inn. Then he took him from his donkey and carried him to a room for the night. The next morning he took his own money from his wallet and gave it to the innkeeper with these words. He said, "Take care of him until I come back from my journey. If it costs more than this, I will repay you when I return." Jesus finishes the story. He says, "So now tell me, which one of the three men who saw the wounded man proved to be the true neighbor?" The religious scholar responded, "The one who demonstrated kindness and mercy." And Jesus said, "You must go and do the same as he." Now, this story is loaded with juice. There are so many layers, so much depth to this story, to what is happening here. We're only going to look at one, but I want to tell you, if you want to look at this later, there is so much racial tension between the Samaritans and the Jewish people. So for Jesus to tell this story, it makes no sense that a Samaritan would stop and help a Jewish person. That doesn't make any sense. We might know the story as the Good Samaritan, and Samaritans might be good people. Not the case. Not to Jewish people. They were not good people. Another layer to this story is Jesus is not so subtly saying that Jewish religious people are not helpful to those in need. That would have made a couple of Jewish religious people pretty angry. Jesus suggests that priests are not helpful to those in need. He suggests that the Levites, the assistants to the priests, are not helpful to those in need. So there's so much depth to this story. We're going to look at one layer, though. We're just going to look at one layer. I want to look at these imaginary people that Jesus creates, the Samaritan and the Jewish man that he helps. Because what we see is a man who sees another man, a person who sees another person and sees that they need help. Moved by compassion, it says. Moved by tender compassion. Because everyone else who saw this man, the priest, the Levite, everyone else who saw him, he was in the way. And because he was in the way, they took a different path. I don't know, maybe you can imagine. You're walking down LBJ here in town, and you see someone who is naked and beaten and bloody. I don't know if that's a mess you want to get into, am I right? Like, I'll call the cops, but once I'm out, around the corner, I don't know if that seems like a lot. That seems like a crazy mess. I'm already late. I got things to do. I'm probably going to continue on. I don't know. Maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you'd stop. But there was something about this person. This Samaritan walks up. And for the Samaritan, I'll tell you what, this person was also in the way. This person was in the way for whoever was going to be walking by. But there was one person who decided, the Samaritan decided, I am going to let this person be in my way. And that's a question I want you to ask yourself right now, and I want you to be asking yourself that this week, is who in your life, who are you letting get in your way? Who are you letting get in your way? Who are the people that God has put in your life that you are letting them get in your way? Now hold on, be careful. Because every now and then, people like me will tell you something like this, and will say, who are you letting get in your way? And then your guilt belly starts to grumble a little bit. And you start to feel that twinge of guilt. Yeah, I should be doing more. I should be reaching out to more people. I should be helping people. I should be doing this. And then our life is full of all these things that we should be doing, which are a terrible trap for us to feel even more guilty than we already do. So when I say, who are you letting get in your way, I'm not trying to make you feel guilty for things that you haven't done. I'm trying to open your eyes to see opportunities that God could be giving you to be there for the people in your life. You see the difference? The difference is, one is you're trapped. And you should be doing more. And you should be helping people. How dare you not help people after all that God has done for you? That's one way to look at it. Or it can be an opportunity to bring someone with you into your life, let them get in your way, and show them, give them a glimpse of what connection is, what community is, what relationship is. Those are two different ways to look at the same thing. letting people get in your way. So I want to look closely at verses 34 and 35. Let's take a glimpse at these here. He stooped down. This is the Samaritan in the story. He stooped down, gave him first aid, poured olive oil on his wounds, disinfecting them with wine, and bandaging them to stop the bleeding. Lifting him up, he placed him on his own donkey and brought him to an inn. Then he took him from his donkey, carried him to the room for the night. Right there. That's enough. He carried him to the room for the night. He already gave him first aid, gave him, apparently medical attention in biblical times is EVOO and a house cab, you know, little Pinot Noir is medical attention. Relax, everybody. EMS. I got the olive oil and the wine in the back. Stops and gives him medical attention. Bandages him up, probably covers him up. Gives him a ride to the inn. Brings him inside and gets him a room for the night. Any one of us could agree that that is enough. Any one of us could agree that he's already done more. He's already done more than the two people who probably should have done more. He's already done more than anybody has in this particular story. We would say that is enough, but he doesn't stop. He doesn't stop there. Let's go on. The next morning, he took his own money from his wallet and gave it to the innkeeper with these words, says, "Take care of him until I come back from my journey. If it costs more than this, I will repay you when I return." This connection lasted longer. I guarantee you, if this happened, this connection lasted longer than that night. Because this man, this Samaritan, knew that it was going to take more than just the bandage. It was going to take more than just the EVOO and the wine. It was going to take more than that. That this person needed more than just medical attention. This person needed more than just a room for the night. This person needed someone to be there for them and with them as they recovered, as they healed, as they found healing. And so when it comes to this story, it might be easy. It might be easy to look at it and say, are you the person that is broken, that is hurt, that is sick, that has been left half dead, that has been robbed? And maybe you're not that physically, but maybe you feel like that spiritually, maybe you feel like that emotionally, psychologically, mentally. We can look at this story and say, you're either this person, or maybe you're the Samaritan. Maybe you're strategically placed in the lives of the people around you to be there for them, to be a help for them, to help them find healing, to bring them along with you. So sometimes we can look at a story like this and say, am I the person that's supposed to be bringing people along with me? Or am I the person that I need help? I need someone to bring me along with them. And the truth is, it's not black and white. I wish it was. Wouldn't it be so easy if things were black and white like that? But they're not. The truth is, we are both of these. At different times in our life, sometimes in the same day, we are both of these people. We are in both of our soul is in both of these states where we are ready to bring people along with us, to grow our faith, to grow their faith. And we're also over here where we're broken and we need help and we need healing and we need somebody to see us, to know us. And we're dying for someone to see the real us, but we're scared. We're scared to ask for help. We're scared to reach out. But I'll tell you something that happens in this story. And it doesn't say in these words, but I know it has to happen. I'm going to tell you what it is. The Samaritan walks up. In fact, these words are in there. Hold on. He stooped down. He stooped down to give him first aid. And then he lifted him up. I'm going to tell you a simple thing that needs to happen if I'm going to lift somebody up. In fact, Derek, come here. Hurry. You're on the ground. You're beaten, and you're bloody, and you're naked, and you're robbed, and you're in a terrible place. Here's what needs to happen. I'm going to stoop down, and I'm going to lift him up. What does he need to do if I'm going to lift him up? Anybody? He's got to give me his hand. How am I going to lift him up? Good job. Let's give it up for Derek Hammer, everybody. How am I going to lift him up if he doesn't give me his hand? How's anybody going to lift you up if you're not reaching out for the people around you? If we just stay here stuck, if we just stay here and say, I need somebody to come get me, we're missing out on community. That's not community. You have community around you. You have relationships around you. You have connections around you, but they can only happen if you reach your hand up. There's a story of Jesus walking on water. And there's a man, Peter. He asked Jesus if he can come out on the water with him, and Jesus says, come on with it. Peter goes out on the water, and he starts to lose faith. He starts to lose his ground a little bit. Don't you love that Jesus is always like bringing people with him? Bringing someone out on the water. He starts to lose faith, and he starts to sink. And the way the story goes is Jesus immediately reaches out his hand. Peter reaches out his hand up, and Jesus pulls him up. So it's not, are you waiting to be rescued? Or maybe you're put in someone's life to rescue them. It's both. We can't wait for our situation to get better. We can't wait for us to get our mess together. That's what we do though, right? That's what we do is we say, well, I can't help anybody, Dom. I can't bring somebody. You want me to drag someone down into this mess? I got depression. I'm angry. I got anxiety. My marriage is hanging on by a thread. I'm about to lose my job. I hate everyone around me. I hate myself. And you want me to bring someone with me? That doesn't make any sense. You're right. It doesn't make any sense. But the power of bringing someone with you is that we all create this bond. We create a connection. We create a real relationship when we are brave enough and bold enough to bring someone into our life, no matter the state of it, no matter the mess you're in, no matter how bad things are. Community won't jump on you. Relationship won't jump on you. Because you can have community around you, you can have connection around you, and if you never reach out your hand, if you never say, I want to be in, how could you be lifted up into it? We have a God, we have a Savior, we have Jesus, who is here for us, to show us love, to show us mercy, to show us grace, and there are people walking around who don't feel loved, who don't feel seen, who don't feel known, and I'm telling you, God knows you, sees you, and loves you. But if you're not willing to see, if we're not willing to see that God sees us, that God knows us, then how could we ever receive it? So I want to invite you today, I'm going to challenge you today, not to sit here and wait to be rescued, not to think of yourself as the one going to rescue people, but the one right in the middle, where you're going to stand in your mess, in your weirdness, in your problems, and say, no matter where I am, no matter what's going on, I am not going to stop reaching out to the people in my life because I can see the power of what can happen if I bring someone with me. So if you could, I want you to close your eyes for a moment and bow your heads. It's a simple question I'm going to ask you today. It's a simple challenge that I want you to take. I'm going to ask you to raise your hand in just a moment. And here's what that hand raise is going to mean. You're going to say, Dom, I'm going to reach out to somebody. I'm going to let somebody get in my way this week, and I'm not going to wait for me to have my mess put together. I'm not going to wait to make sure I'm having a good day. I'm not going to wait to make sure I'm in a good mood. I'm going to reach out to someone and let someone get in my way this week. Because I have a God who let me be in his way. If you're willing to take that challenge this week, then on the count of three, I want you to raise your hand. Let's do it. 1, 2, 3. Put your hand up and leave it there. Remember, you're not making a promise to me. This is a promise you're making to yourself. You're going to reach out to somebody this week. Let them be in your way. Okay, put your hands down. We're going to pray. God, we are so grateful for the mercy you have given us, for the love and grace that you have shown. God, we're so grateful that you have brought us with you. I pray that we would be bold and brave this week to reach out to those around us, to build connection, to grow with those around us, We love you, and we pray that in Jesus' name. Amen.